LA, a vast, diverse community with areas that breed success, poverty, and in certain areas, extreme violence.
When you say Los Angeles, versus what you'll see in Boston, the question is, what are you talking about? So, where you all were staying was downtown Los Angeles. This is kind of the East LA, which is the Latino. Then you have South Central. Then you might have the West Los Angeles, where we'll be going as well. So, when you begin to develop programs, the biggest question is what part of Los Angeles are you targeting, or are you targeting the entire Los Angeles?
Reverend Mark Jennings works for the Los Angeles TenPoint Coalition and helps so-called high-risk youths redirect their lives away from violence and gang culture.
And then even to compound that, when you talk about Los Angeles County, you're talking about some places which are an hour to an hour and a half from each other. There are a great deal of gang members who want to change. I think we work with some of them. When I'm inside of the Juvenile Hall and I ask the youth, what could you change about your life? Many of them say being a gang member. Then also there are those who really don't want to change. And I really see that it's the goal of the church, it's the goal of secular organizations, it's the goal of the government to help these youth understand that it's in their best interest to leave that negative lifestyle. This part is just like many of the other ones. You can see the graffiti and the gang writing, so the gangs exist here. During the day, you're not going to see too many of them, but you come back at night and you get a fuller sense of what's going on.
People can take a pot shot at you on the night time.
Right. Well, here, the real, when I first got here, the gang members were shooting at sport at the police officers.
Throughout this urban jungle, there is something in the air that breeds a sense of uncertainty, a sense of risk and caution. The fact that some say the gang problems in LA are uncontrollable really drills home when we think that the UK may be faced with such levels of gang activity unless steps are taken to address the increase in gang culture.
Several homicides about 50 yards from where you're standing. We've had them right over here in this, right where they're playing basketball in this park. You have prostitution, you have narcotics, you have anything you could possibly imagine. Stolen cars, it's a high crime area. So what we're doing is a 3-on-3 tournament to try and create activity, positive activity. And these kids are coming from all over the city.
Yeah, this is, South Central. South Central LA.
Okay, then, so what goes on in South Central then?
Everything. Drug dealing, parties, gang activity, I'm stuck.
Yeah, what about the positive things? Anything positive?
Yeah, we have a lot of church outreach, sports like today. They have the Officer Dietrich have a lot of people that are headed towards gangs are participating in this basketball thing. So a lot of parks is opening up more sports activities to keep the dudes off the street so they won't go in the direction of gangs.
In the UK, right, we've got youngsters between 9 and 18 aspiring to be gangsters, yeah? What advice could you give to us who haven't reached that gangsterhood ship of redirecting the youngsters?
Just put their mind in another set as the things they like to do. Don't punish them by saying, I take away, if they like to play football, you say, well, punish me, I'm taking away football. You can't do that, because then that anger they already have for being in trouble goes into more anger because they can't do what they like to do. So, we just got to keep them happy with what they like to do and then, discipline them in other areas.
Niani, what do you see in this community now? How do you fit in?
Violence.
Violence.
You fit in? You're a violent person?
No, you said what I see in this community. I see violence. A lot of stuff. I see a lot of things.
Like, I did everything a gangbanger would do, but during the process, and two, it comes with sports, but everybody needs that person who actually cares, who helps them see the potential that they can be in the future, So that's what it took for me. It took somebody that I didn't know from clear shot nothing to help me and to say, well, I'm gonna help you do this. I'm gonna help you see. I'm not gonna give up on you, and and that kind of touched me. Like, well, if he see potential in me, then there's something there, because he don't know me from nothing. So it's something good,
Who was that?
Ron Crumpton. He's my mentor now.
Your mentor?
Yeah.
Where are you aspiring to go or to be?
Probably one of the youngest basketball coaches, and now I'm doing the whole mentor thing for students for students at the school I coach. People I don't even know, I just enjoy helping now. Now that somebody helped me, now I ain't either shot or dead, you know what I'm saying? So I just want to help too.
How did DeAndre help you, Niani?
He helped me by having me go in positive ways, doing the right things.
What was he doing before?
Never going to school. I wasn't taking nothing seriously.
What advice would you give some of these youngsters who want to be in England? Yeah, they want to be gangsters. They got replica guns. They ain't got guns. Yeah. They're intimidating people, but they're not hard men. What's the advice you want to leave back in England?
Well, those type of people that start naming out here, we call them promotional thugs, because it's just that's what they see. They're not really that. So I don't know. The advice I can give is it don't equals to nothing. It only equals to dirt, family crying, jail, everything that for whoever believes in heaven or hell, it only believes in hell, related things. So.
Within the school systems here in Watts and really throughout the United States, the way that school districts have managed to deal with gang youth is to toss them out. Let's get them out of our school. That'll improve our test scores. That'll improve our grades. That'll make us look like blue ribbon schools. That's the way that they deal with many of the high risk and at-risk youth. But what we try to do at LA TenPoint is to bridge that gap, to begin to work with the teachers and work with the principals and work with the guidance counselors, work with the youth and work with the families to make sure that we can get them to back in and to stay in to those schools. So we need to help the young people to understand that this is a privilege. This is a free education that you're getting, and that this is really part of your job training for the future. So we help them to understand that as with some high school, you have the potential, statistics say, to make $300 a week. With a PhD, you have the potential to make $1,400 a week. So we help them to see that balance, that with some high school, if you drop out now, if you quit now, if you allow them to throw you out now, then you have really given up on any potential earnings, any way of being able to take care of your family in the end. If most times the probation officers don't go into the schools. Most times the teachers never go into the homes. We try to do all of that. So we'll go to your probation office. We go to your home. We'll see you on the street. We go to your school. We go to your classroom. And when we show up, it's like, wow. They didn't just say they were going to come, they actually did. They didn't just say they cared, they actually demonstrated that they cared. And that's what I talk about with the ministry of presence, when I speak about a ministry of presence.
organization is Gangster Ministries.
Gangster Ministry. Can you tell us all about the Gangster Ministry?
I can tell you that Gangster Ministries has been in and of itself existing here in Los Angeles for the last 6 years. I can tell you that it really originated back in '69 is when we first began to work towards developing it. We established a church in 1972 with the goals of providing shelter and jobs and things of that nature for the guys that are out in the street, as well as those that were being released from jails and prisons.
Just 1969 you was established, yeah?
Exactly. That's
Was
what
the gang
began.
was the gang culture then?
Oh, absolutely.
What was it like in '69?
It was like you had the older guys that were involved in gang, or actually the criminal activity. It wasn't so much gang then as it was the criminal activity. They were just kind of like what they would call today mentoring. They would mentor the guys in the community, and what they did was try to give them, even if they were out in the street doing wrong, to try to give them some kind of direction on just not how to be out there just crazy like they are today, with no direction, no understanding about what's going to, no care, concern for anybody or anything else. So that was the role of the older brothers then in '69, and the younger brothers had a closer camaraderie. They had a more closer concern. You know about that. Those were during the times with the Panther movement, your culture had an awakening as blacks. There was an awakening going on. An Afrocentric movement in place at that time. So all those things were components were playing a part that which you don't have today.
There's a verse of scripture in the 6th chapter of the book of Ephesians, the 1st and 2nd verse. It said, "Children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. Honor your father and your mother, which is the first commandment, with a promise that you may live long on the land that the Lord thy God giveth you." My understanding to this verse of scriptures is, if you want to live long, if you want to have a prosperous life, then you have to honor your mother and your father.
You have to have both approaches, because many times you have to build that, part of communication is based on how your relationship is. And it's kind of hard to speak to a child who they don't know you and you haven't put that pre-time in. Because the children who we find many times who are part of the juvenile system, they have a lot of disappointment. They have a lot of folks who told them they would be there for them, and come to find out that when everything hit the rubber, that sometimes they were the only one in court by themselves. And so when they're in there, they have no contact. And so sometimes, with anybody, that anger would build up. We go in and show them on the inside that we're here not just to talk to you and have another rah-rah session, but we're here to prepare you so that you can make a difference. And then we just don't see them in there, and then when they get out, we turn our backs on them. But we're the ones that go with them to court. And Reverend Jennings through LA TenPoint is doing a masterful job. I'm just working with him doing a navigation support piece inside there, but also doing behavior modification. I'm a certified behavior analyst outside of being an ordained elder or minister in the church. So I put those two together because it's always not, what somebody is doing. It's the puppet hand behind that's causing them to do it.
When you think about the United States a lot, you normally think about black and white. But that's not necessarily the case here in LA. So we've even reached out to some Cambodian youth.
The challenges that I face are multifaceted, man, to be honest with you. Sometimes the parents themselves provide no motivation for the youth, and there's only so much that a youth under 18 can do on his own. Sometimes it's just getting them out of the neighborhood that they're in. I mean, it's easy to tell them, don't do this, but when everyone around them is doing this, it becomes an issue. For some of our kids, because the gang culture of LA is so strong, it's actually a life-saving tool, believe it or not, to be a part of the gang, because if they're not, then they're considered an enemy. And so how do I tell them not to do something that may be keeping them alive for right now? Getting the youth themselves to have a vision for their own future. That is one of the major challenges, is that they see everyone that they know is living this way and doing these things, and now you're telling me not to. Well, what options are you providing why I shouldn't? The special tools that a life coach needs to have is he needs to be able to communicate with people. People need to be able to understand and see this is a real person and that he can identify with me. That is the biggest tool that I have, is that I can identify with the young people and they can identify with me. Though I'm slightly older than them, we can talk about it. We can sit down and they can see, okay, he's not just some program trying to lock me up real fast. You have to present a human side, and you have to be very dependable, because most of the youth will tell you, I've been disappointed by adults my whole life. And so you have to be sometimes that one positive male figure that they're seeing, but you have to be to a point where you're comprehensible to them.
You don't get people knocking down your door to come try to work with probation youth or try to work with youth that are involved in gangs. Most times they're trying to run away from them. And if you think about it, there's about 100,000 gang members in Los Angeles County, according to many of the police statistics. But even out of that, they would tell you that 1% of that number really are the gang bangers. So there's even a difference between a gang member and a gang banger. So that a gang member, remember we're talking about 100,000 gang members, 1% of which are gang bangers. The gang bangers, the ones being the young people who are causing most of the trouble with the shootings, the homicides, and many other the indicators that give us our peaks and rises in crime. So really, if you can affect those real hard-headed ones, then you have a great chance to really do what happened in Boston with the 62% reduction in crime and nearly 2 years of zero youth homicides. I think that's what the Boston Miracle was all about, and that's what I really see as being something that can really happen here in Los Angeles.
Being a life coach, to be effective, I do have to say, to a degree of it, living amongst the people helps me, coming from the same areas and being able to say, I made it out of this. I know what you're going through. I've been there. I've seen these same things and worse. Yes, it does help, but I won't say it's a must-have, because I think that the biggest thing is you have to have a heart for people, because you're not going to always see things the way you want it to. It's not, happy-go-lucky. Everything is not going to turn out perfect the first time. You really have to have a heart for people. I think that is the biggest thing that you can have, because, you can identify with every situation. I've seen some kids who their situation is unimaginable for me, and I've seen some pretty rough things, but it's just having a heart for people. It's just being able to try to relate to them. And if not, that's okay. If you've never been through that, that's fine too. But at the same time, just having that open heart and mind and willingness to try.
Hi, Jermaine. We're from England. We've got a lot of problems in the UK. Young people aspiring to be gangsters. Can you tell us a bit about your background and what you've seen living in the neighborhood, and probably explain which neighborhood we're in right now?
Well, actually, right now we're on Western and 39th. This neighborhood is the 30s, and I grew up over in the 40s and the Hoovers and a lot of 18th Street, a lot of Mexican gangs. But basically, I had chances to go down that road, but I looked at my older brothers while they was going through their little gangbanging stage and stuff, and I just took the opposite road. I fell in love with basketball, and I just been, just trying to stay out of trouble, leave the drugs alone, and just keep my mind focused. And if they had more things like they have right now, this 3-on-3 tournament, back in the days, then I think we could have, stopped a lot of more gangbanging and drug dealing, and right now it's other enemies here, but it's not about that. We're right now we're just playing basketball. It's all about bringing together unity and
Could you define a gangbanger, please?
Gangbanger, someone that's grew up in a rough family, sell drugs, claim a color, harass people on a daily just for fun, it's different types of gangbangers. It's pretenders and real gangbangers that just do it just to make money, to survive, and it's just people that just see other people doing it and just want to have a good family, have a father, have a mother, and just want to follow along, that person.
The parents, in my view, should are maybe the first line of defense for gang crime, and they can determine when their children are likely to go into gangs or are starting to go into gangs. Some subtle signs. Look for the subtle signs of graffiti in their notebooks. Look for subtle signs of the type of clothing that they're wearing, the type of music that they listen to, the type of company that they keep. And don't tell me that you don't know when your child is involved in company that may, through the exercise of peer pressure, lead your son or in some cases daughter in the wrong direction. So those factors.
One of the challenges I faced when I first came here, I came into the parks and I spoke with the directors and the parents and the coaches, and their first response to me was social programs, money. We don't have money. We need more funding. We need this. We need that. And my response to them was, we have a field. We have the knowledge. I just need about 5 parents to help me with these programs, and we'll make them work. Fortunately, as we've gone on, we have more funding, but initially, that was the most important thing. They felt that they needed all this money to keep these kids out of trouble and to start these programs, when in actuality they didn't. We had it. We just, like my partner said, we needed more parent participation. Where we're standing is part of a target area. You could come down and it's Martin Luther King, which is maybe from Crenshaw to Western would maybe be 2 miles going east and west. From King to Vernon would maybe be a mile going north and south. And what they do is they push funds into this area to create programs to try and reduce crime. George W. Bush recently has doubled the funding, and it's still based on target areas.
What I'll do is I'll start with the intervention piece, since in my recent assignment I was involved in embracing the Chief William Bratton's vision of enhancing youth programs, youth initiatives as it relates to intervention. The Los Angeles Police Department has a number of programs involving youth intervention, which start at a very young age, called our Deputy Auxiliary Police, starting at the age of 7 years old. It's like a junior cadet program. They're in all 19 of our geographic areas. There are 19 areas in the city of Los Angeles. And at the age of 14, these young people can then join Explorers. And Explorers is a scouting program. Again, another intervention program. This is historic for the Los Angeles Police Department. It's been very effective as an intervention technique. One of the things that we were looking at recently in enhancing that program is to take it beyond just at the area level where we are in a geographic area, but increasing the numbers by bringing it into the local high schools. We recognize that in high schools, certainly there's a greater likelihood that young people will get involved in these kind of activities without the fear of neighborhood peer pressures, such as you talked prior to the interview about the gang culture and some of the gang-related issues. Many young people feel pressured not to interact with police departments. So one of the things that we were looking at doing was bringing in youth into the high school and starting Explorer Posts as like an after-school program.
In spite of the enforcement efforts that we do from a gang enforcement standpoint, we recognize that to curb the problem, the traditional enforcement will not be enough. It must be combined with some intervention efforts. It must be combined with some referral efforts, and certainly to the extent that the enforcement will be more effective, direct enforcement, which is to arrest, apprehend, then we do that. I think to understand the way we do things here in LA, for example, in terms of gang problems, you must understand that we have some of the most violent gangs here in this country, in this city, in this division. As a result of that, sometimes we have to take the most direct and assertive approach to those gang members.
We do a lot of enforcement work as it relates to gangs. And so what we're trying to do is mesh the enforcement and intervention together. Our gang officers in the near future, in addition to doing the traditional enforcement, will also have an opportunity to involve and identify young people for our intervention programs, like our Explorers, like our Deputy Auxiliary Police programs.
Please.
You got something on all the...
More copy. George. On to the Spanish speaking request. 3 FB6, 3 George 34, all Southwest Georgia.
Wow, something's going down. That's going to happen. They're asking for all the gang units and all of South Bureau to respond.
They're going to be tied up on this shooting scene on Crenshaw.
So you got a shooting right here up on Crenshaw.
Yeah.
I mean, it just...
Is
this what it's like then on a regular basis? That's it, man. You're listening to it.
Yeah.
This is what you guys could be in for if you don't get hold of it.
Yeah.
See, like these little dudes right here. This is right here. They're kicking it right here. On the
Oh, yeah.
There's your issue.
Is this the issue, yeah?
That's what you're looking at.
Yeah. 3 George 30, respond to the location of 83rd and San Pedro.
And all you got to do is look in their eyes.
Yeah, man, you can see in the eyes for real. San Pedro, the location of the shooting.
See, so all the, that's about, I don't know what they have going down, but they're asking for all the gang units.
One more information on 5 Nora, item area 783.
In South Bureau head to this shooting, I don't know why.
125 Nora, item area 783.
How important do you think it is to get things like what you're doing in place?
Oh, it's definitely important. It's important to get it initially, make that contact and because what's going to happen is your police department's going to become more aggressive.
Let me hold it.
It's okay, I just think there's something. Your police department's going to become more aggressive with the violence. You're going to have to, because officers are going to start getting shot, people are going to start getting killed. So you're going to have to respond to this violence, and when you respond, you're going to attack, right? Then your relationship with the community is going to be damaged. Hence, we have the riots in 1969. We had the riots in 1992, right? And a lot of that was police hostility. It was built up from all this tension. Well, you can see what we're dealing with. You can't be passive. You can't be nice all the time and mess with gang members. You can have a relationship with the citizens of the community. That's what I would always emphasize. I mean, we're always taught to be so politically correct in the academy with everybody.
Yes.
It's not that way.
Okay.
If you would teach police officers how to deal with gang members and still treat the community the way they're supposed to be, Yeah.
My advice to the youth in UK is this. take evaluation, who you are, seriously. Make your own decisions. Don't be governed by what someone else does. Taking your own mind, the depth of what you're doing. This could be an altercation that could lose your life right now. For me, if I had to do it again, I would consider my steps that I was taking. I would watch who I'm associating with. There's a scripture in the Bible that said evil communication corrupts good manners. So I would watch who I associate with. I would make sure that what you're saying is gonna help me and not hurt me. I would say that they need to look closely in the people that they're associated with, look at prior history, see young men in prison, see young men that are dead, and if it happened to those men, then it could happen to me.